The create user syntax. The create user command is used to create Oracle database users. In its simplest form, you would create a user identified by a password. The externally option allows identification by an operating system username, and the globally as external option name allows authentication across a network from a remote machine. The grayed out areas are once again out of scope. They're database administration, although the profile option allows the assigning of a profile to a particular user. The red options are database administration, but they are important for user creation. For instance, the default tablespace option allows the assigning of a tablespace name to a user, which means that when an object such as a table is created in a user, if you assign a default tablespace, that table will be created in that designated tablespace. The temporary tablespace is used to assign sorting to a specially formatted tablespace, specially formatted and organized for sorting data. Quotas allow certain space allocations on different table spaces. This is a small part of the create user script for the concepts user. Once again, we've got default tablespace data, temporary tablespace temp. This forces any objects created in user into data tablespace. The temp tablespace is used for large sorts where they're forced into the tablespace, and the quotas are assigned to the different tablespaces, allowing, for instance, unlimited creation space for this user on these tablespaces. I want to go a little bit further with this because I need you to understand why we need to set the default tablespace and the temporary tablespace. Go to the next slide to demonstrate a little more clearly. Here we see we have sort space and temp. We have a note here that says the tables and indexes are separated since both are read concurrently, which is generally a good idea. When you create a database, you have a data and an index space. You put your tables in data, and you put your tables in index. The reason why is because the nature of indexes and tables is that they are read concurrently. In other words, they are read at the same time. So if we have them on two separate physical areas, for instance, two separate disks, then it's much quicker to read the two separate disks simultaneously rather than trying to read the same disk at the same time. It's faster to read in parallel. The same applies to what I'm trying to tell you about the default tablespace and data and the temporary tablespace and temp. If these options are not specified, what will happen when the user concepts creates a table, since the default tablespace is not specified as data, the concepts user table will be created in the system tablespace. Same applies to temp, unless when you use the create database statement, you can actually create the database with a default temporary tablespace. In other words, when you create a user, if you do not specify temporary tablespace, it will take the default temporary tablespace from the database specification. As you remember, we talked about hierarchies of files, tablespaces, and tables. Same applies to the database. The database is really one step above the files. Default values are inherited up the hierarchy. Back to the system tablespace. So when we don't assign a default tablespace or a temporary tablespace to the constants user, everything will be created in the system tablespace. Why is this a bad thing? Because this is the metadata. Anything you do in the Oracle database, for instance, reading a table, it goes to the metadata to find the definition for the table, then it applies it to the data and pulls the data out in the right order or the right structure. So if you were to put all your data items and all your temporary sorts into system, every single thing you're doing is hitting that system tablespace. There would be a lot of contention, a lot of concurrency problems where you've got different things reading the same piece of physical space on the disk at the same time. This is the reason why we have default tablespace and temporary tablespace specifications in the create user statement. Let's go and take another look at our create user script. What I would like to do is I would like to create a user. I'm going to create an end user type user. So it's not going to be a concepts user, it's not going to be a schema user, it's going to be a user, a person who goes in and looks at data and doesn't generally change anything. We're going to create a user called Joe. Now when I say he won't change anything, he won't change any objects. He could add data into the objects, but he won't be dropping tables, creating tables, etc. So first of all, I'm going to change this. I'm going to remove bot command. Let's do the replace first. Concerts and Joe. Replace all. Since Joe will be changing data, he may as well keep the quotas. He may as well keep the default and temporary table space. The one thing Joe won't need is all these system privileges in the roles connect and resource. All he's going to need is create session at this point in time. Now what this will allow Joe to do is to simply connect to the database.